live button yet.
We are live.
Go ahead, introduce the program, Greg.
Mr. Wade, reading.
Go ahead. Oh, you want me to go?
Okay. As the chairman, I'll proceed. Tonight, being Friday, is legal and constitutional program night, and therefore, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm your regular host, chairman for Friday night programs. We have our three other panelists, Mr. Roody Wade, Ms. Sharon Pitts, and we have my good cousin, Mr. Gregory Brackett. Um, I'll just defer to Gregory for his introduction, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Wade for the reading. Then, and then we go to Ms. Sharon, who will bless us with our prayer. Greg, introduction, please.
Good night to the Belizean people at home and abroad. Welcome to the 46th edition of Belizean Affair. Sitting with me virtually tonight are three hosts and our guest host, Ms. Sharon Fitz, Mr. Rudy Wade, and our chairman, Mr. Leonard Brackett. Again tonight, we bring to you Fridays as our constitutional night. With that said, I go to Mr. Wade for his reading.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Leonard, for that warm welcome, and thank you again, Ms. Sharon Pitts, for for being here with us tonight. As always, we start our show with a word and a prayer. I'll continue from Proverbs 17, 20 to 28. It says, "A man of crooked heart does not discover good, and one with a dishonest tongue falls into calamity. He who stirs a fool gets himself sorrows, and the father of a fool has no joy. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. The wicked accept a bribe in secret to prevent to pervert the ways of justice. The discerning the discerning sets his face towards wisdom, but the eyes of a fool are on the end of the earth. A foolish son is a grief to his father, and bitterness to her who bore him. To impose a fine on on a righteous man is not good, not to strike to noble for their uprightness. Whoever restrains his words has knowledge, and he who has a cool spirit is a man of understanding. So even a fool who keeps silent is considered wise. When he closes his lips, he is deemed intelligent. That's a quick
Amen.
reading from Proverbs. Um, Mr. Chairman.
Uh, Thank you very much, Mr. Wade, for that wonderful reading, sir. Ms. Spitz could give us the prayer for tonight, please.
Good, dear God, thanks for bringing us together as a people at home and abroad, and for allowing us this privilege, dear God. Please guide the meditations of our hearts, the words
Amen.
we speak, and
Amen.
allow us, dear God, to be able to, where we are cloudy, we rely on the understanding that you would imbue in us.
Amen.
As we listen and as we impart and as we share. Dear God, continue to bless and protect Belize. 225 years at this anniversary of the Battle of St. George's Key, and
Amen.
as well as our 42nd anniversary into nationhood or sovereignty. Dear God,
Amen.
please maintain our land intact, our people as one Belizean people
Amen.
together, one strong identity, dear God. And most of all, dear God, that we will be as a people and a nation who remain under the fear of God, despite whatever our shortcomings are from time to time, dear God. Please heal Belize as a nation, dear God. Heal our people, heal our leaders, dear God. Bring us together in the goodness of your mercy for the posterity of Belize as
Amen.
we continue to be a part of the wider humanity, dear God. Bless us always by thy grace, dear God, and our prayers as well, dear God. Thanks.
Amen.
Mhm.
Amen.
Greg?
Amen. Thank you, Miss Fitz. Good night to the Belizean people at home and abroad. Before we get into the meat of tonight's show, I would like to play this for our BTV individual out there who are doing a marvelous job.
Oh, Kokono boy, and it's a shamrock. We coming down, we run the town. We tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We tired of this fighting with Guatemala. We tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We tired of this fighting with Guatemala. This is a serious problem with the we borderline from 1859. Belize we had a treaty signed. It has been disrespectful. They want to take over we water, trespassing in our jungle. They shoot through our soldier. Border to border, Belize and Guatemala. Border to border, we need peace and order. Border to border, Belize and Guatemala. Border to border, we need peace and order. We're tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We're tired of this fighting with Guatemala. We're tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We're tired of this fighting with Guatemala. The OAS was here to investigate. Guatemala rejects our 11-point proposal. From the gate when it was a child, Guatemala was still with pride. Belizeans open, oh no, I see Jenny to be implied. Border to border, Belize and Guatemala. Border to border, we need peace and order. Border to border, Belize and Guatemala. Border to border, we need peace and order. Chef Rock, Coconut Boy, Lifestyle Tune Man, Belize. Oh, land of the free by the Carib Sea, our manhood we pledge to thy liberty. No tyrants here linger, despots must flee this tranquil haven of democracy. From proud Rio Hondo to Ozarks tune. Belize, 8,867 square miles. We tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We tired of this fighting with Guatemala. We tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We tired of this fighting with Guatemala. This is a serious problem with the we borderline from 1859. Belize we had a treaty signed. It has been disrespectful. They want to take over we water, trespassing in our jungle. They shoot through our soldier. Border to border, Belize and Guatemala. Border to border, we need peace and order. Border to border, Belize and Guatemala. Border to border, tired of this claiming from Guatemala. We're tired of this fighting with Guatemala. We're tired of this claiming from Guatemala. Belize a fi we country and not fi Guatemala.
Thank you very much,
That
Greg.
said, Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes,
like
sir.
to go to the first clipping of the Attorney General.
Thank you very much.
I see Mr. Wade is not.
You
Mr.
probably
Wade is.
So why is the government flouting the referendum law when it comes
Okay.
when in regard to Oceana's petition with 22,000 signatures? You last told a reporter you were seeking legal advice, which is cause for great concern because you are the legal advice.
The government is not flouting the referendum law.
It gives no room for delay, though, sir.
But you asked the question, allow me to respond. The government is not flouting the government is not flouting the referendum law. Yes, so the Attorney General's ministry is the chief legal advisor. So the Attorney General, myself, I don't necessarily sit and draft all opinions. So within the Attorney General's ministry, there are crowns who would research and advise on these matters. I would review their advice, and if the advice is what having regard to my own research, then based on that, then we'd provide the advice. But let me say this: Oceana and the government, we are in discussion.
But the law makes no provision for legal advice. The law does not say if you don't want to do it in 6 weeks, seek legal advice. The law is unequivocal, sir. You are finding a shading of meaning when it suits you, but the law is absolute. It says you shall act in such a way.
Well, this is why the government seeks my legal advice, Jules, and that's your interpretation. But respectfully,
But is there an equivocation in the law that it allows you to seek legal counsel? Does it say that? Does it say you have time to review by the government's lawyer?
what I will say is this: Oceana, lawyers for Oceana, and the government, we are in discussion. We don't want to prejudice any discussion that is taking place, but I do believe that within the next week or so, cabinet hasn't. Well, today would have been cabinet. Cabinet will meet next week. I had a meeting with the lawyer for Oceana, Mrs. Jacqueline Marshall, Senior Counsel, on Friday. We'll receive some indication as it relates to a way forward a proposal. Well, in turn, that will be submitted for cabinet. So next week we'll be able to give some definitive answer as it relates to
But
that.
you guys are frustrating a democratic process.
No, we are not. We are not. We are not. We are having a discussion. We are having negotiations with Oceana.
But the law doesn't make provision for that. Either you certify the signatures or you decertify them. Where are you all finding the room to do all of this background negotiation? I'm saying either the law is an ass or it is obeyed.
That is your interpretation, and respectfully, we disagree. The government disagrees.
But I'm reading the law, sir. You are reading from some other book, from the executive playbook of how we do things.
No, Jules. Respectfully, you read the law. You've interpreted the law. There are different laws at play here, and the Referendum Act and the People's Constitution Act. So, as you will appreciate, the People's Constitution Act also speaks to a referendum, and a referendum after the whole consultation process with respect to the Constitution. Again, I don't want to prejudice any particular discussion or that we are having at Oceana, but suffice it to say that there is an interplay. There's a between both the People's Constitution Act and the Referendum Act. There may be difference of opinions as it relates to how the interplay actually operates. If indeed there is an interplay, you take a firm position that there is no interplay. But yeah, but and this is the beauty about the law. The law does.
This is the beautiful lawyers. This is what you all love. But you're now breaking the law to create an impression that there's space for negotiation.
With respect, I strongly reject that, and you cannot seriously be suggesting as such. But I accept and I appreciate, the vigor in which you may approach this matter, given your interpretation of the law. But we'll have to disagree on this matter.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. That is our first clip that we need. I would like to be able to address tonight, especially. Our learned Attorney General is speaking on behalf of his client, apparently because, like Mr. Belizean stipulated before when he referred to Mr. Jarosowicz, he said Mr. Jarosowicz did not understood his assignment, which was a lie, outright lie at that. But let's leave that lie alone. Let's go back to the Attorney General. He seemed to have understood his assignment. And his assignment is to be a bamboozler on behalf of his client. A bamboozler to us, the general public, Belizeans at home and abroad, of course, because we are not supposed to know better about what he is inferring and his conflation to the facts as they really are. First and foremost, he speaks about two different referendum criteria, statuses, or categories. And he's conflating them as to say, in the first place, what Oceana is trying to do under the present law of the land, which is our current constitution as is, not one that is proposed for some future date, but under the present law as is, Oceana wanted to hold the feet of the government to the fire in terms of having made commitment to Oceana and their other organizations to not do oil drilling. They were required then, if they wanted to take the matter to the plebiscite for a referendum, that they needed to collect 20,000 plus signatures. They played by the rule, they collected their 20,000 signatures, and in most instances, if you don't collect enough signatures to qualify the 20,000 signatures, then the government could just tell you, go about your business and don't come back. But because Oceana picked up more than the 20,000 that they needed, valid signatures that were validated by the Election and Boundaries Department, after those signatures was delivered to the Governor General place of business, they were then turned over by the Governor General's office to the I think Sharon is okay. They were turned over to the Election and Boundaries for validation, which is how the process is supposed to work. After it was found out that the signatures were valid, the government then proceeded to try and stall for time and hope that Oceana would go away. And when Oceana kept on pressing them to follow up with the referendum, the government decided, instead of following up with the referendum under the present condition of the, as is in the law of our constitution today, they decided to go and try and have side deals with Oceana's bigwigs abroad. And those bigwigs abroad that the government went and had contacts with or discussions with called on their Oceana local people, what's the name? I forgot her name. But anyhow, and also their legal staff in Belize or their legal personnel in Belize. And it seems like the Prime Minister and his entourage is of the opinion that they can bamboozle Oceana into accepting a different deal than what is supposed to be on the table based on the Constitution. And the different deal is that, okay, we will not go through with a referendum currently. We'll give you, like Mr. Courtney would say in his words, an understanding that if we decide to do any drilling in the future, then we will trigger a referendum and we'll let you have your referendum then, which is a violation of the laws as they currently read in our Constitution. They're trying to swindle the people and want the opportunity for them to have the Constitution be honored. And they're trying to come up with excuses, as Jules pointed out in the piece that was shown earlier. The Attorney General is coming up with this idea that they're having discussions with these people which they're not supposed to be having in the first place. You can't stop them from being able to get their ministers honored and their constitutional right, as per the Constitution today, to have the referendum triggered. But I'll explain to you why that is happening behind the scene and why they're trying to deprive these people of the referendum. First, they don't want the referendum to happen because they know they will lose. That will be egg on the government's case. Because the government is all bent and intent on going ahead and doing additional exploration, as well as trying to figure out how much oil we have and whether or not it is commercially viable or feasible or economically viable. Because if and when they decide to do any kind of drilling in Belize, as I can tell you, just from what I know, we have oil, substantial amount of oil, and I don't need to explain that right now because it's going to take me a little while and sidetrack. But if the government were to get to find out that they have large commercial quantities of oil, they will just dismiss Oceana and Oceana's concern. And based on what the new constitution that they're trying to put together will stipulate, that is that the future governments will not have to listen to any entities like Oceana having any kind of jurisdiction or power, or the constitution will not allow them to over. As a matter of fact, right now they don't want the courts to have any jurisdiction over the laws of the land. They want to create the laws and don't have the court involved in any of the law reviews. So for all intents and purposes, they will probably end up with a referendum, yes, but the referendum that they're trying to save their time and money for is the referendum on the Constitution itself. They are unwilling to abide by the law and give these people their referendum, whether it's under Oceana or whether it's under the marijuana thing with the churches. But they'll take a referendum to get our Constitution bastardized and for all intents and purposes eliminated in lieu of something new that will empower them with additional powers that they're trying to accrue to themselves. That's what the whole agenda is all about and the whole shenanigan is all about. But our Attorney General knows better. He conflated when he said or made reference to the PCC rule that they went and passed in Congress, as if to say that PCC rule trumps our present constitution and trumps or referendum of the People's Act, as is currently. And that is a no-no. That's a violation of the Constitution itself. And then the Prime Minister is going to hide behind the existing PCC doing what they're proposed to do, as if they actually became or are empowered then to make laws and decide what laws are valid and not. The legislator of our country makes the laws. That's according to the Constitution. The Supreme Court and the judiciary interprets those laws as to whether or not they're constitutional or valid. So when our Attorney General, who is supposed to be a learned individual, turns around and conflate and mix up those two things, as if to say whatever the Constitution Committee is doing takes precedence over our current existing laws on the book, and therefore they got to wait to see what's going to come out of that constitutional review process to determine whether or not Oceana should have the right and the privilege accorded to them to trigger a referendum. That's a done deal based on our current laws. And whatever, like I said last week, whatever the current PCC is doing has no legal basis in terms of valid law proposition. It will take, as I explained in the last show, at least about 6 different stages before they get to a point where anything that they're currently doing will have effect of law. It has to go to the Prime Minister. First of all, they have to collect the information. Then they got to collate it and send it to the Prime Minister. Then the Prime Minister have to review it get draft people to put it into legal draft form after discussing it in cabinet, taking that legal draft form then, format then to the House for the House to vote on, to give it legitimacy of law. And before and after that, they have to have, before that, they have to have a referendum before it becomes law. They also have to have the assent of the Governor General before it becomes law. They have to also publish it in the Gazette before it becomes law. All these different things have to happen. So for all intents and purposes, when these knuckleheads are bamboozling people and telling people, oh, we're in a constitutional review process, so therefore we have to wait for whatever comes out of that. No, we have an existing law that is on the book that needs to be honored and respected. But these guys have no respect for our current constitution and the law that they swore to uphold. They only swore to it in order to get the powers assented to them. But I'll yield the floor to whoever wants to chip in and add something to that particular point. Greg or Mr. Wade or Sharon?
I pass it on to Sharon.
Okay, I've tried to listen and
She's the legal
I
minded.
gather, and I will I'm praying for wisdom as I answer this and for some clarity, but I will be lending my intuition and what I stand for as a Belizean, I hope. It seems to me that we have Oceania, which, and I don't know all of its petition. I don't know if it's a moratorium they're calling on or a total ban or prohibition on offshore oil exploration and or drilling. Now, from what I'm hearing too, just now, it's as though they would have fallen on what government might have indicated to them, threshold 20,000 signatures to the petition in order to trigger what would follow to a people's referendum on the matter. With respect to that, I hear that, well, we have constitution, and if that is set out in the constitution, the government ought to follow it. I heard the Attorney General saying, from just the glancing, sometimes I can't listen too well on, and that he's taking on the advisement and legal opinion and so on, and we'll see how it coincides or otherwise. He didn't use those words or the gist of it with his and certain things as to cabinet and so on, not that they, I think, might meet on it. And indication has been given just now too that Oceania has its attorney, and government might have met with them, both parties, and promise was made and so on, right? Now I hear most of all that it is that if we have a constitution, we can't flaunt or go against what our constitution prescribes. It seems to me that if we're not careful, we could impale Belize on the bad part of a double-edged sword. This matter, to my mind, is such, just from what the bit I'm hearing, I'm not somebody who listens to news, and I must confess, I really mostly am out of it, not everyday news and so on, right? So I have to take it just by way of from what I've gathered just now. But I want to lend to that my intuition too as a Belizean, and what I believe is incumbent on us as Belizeans and those who, if we say we guard our constitution, it's because we guard our country, Belize's sovereignty, holding our country intact, and so on. I don't know, and I can't suggest that if 20,000 signatories or more have signed a petition, that is not in keeping with the constitutional formula for that. I can't gainsay and suggest that people were not well informed, or maybe that whoever were campaigning, whether an entity Oceana or others in conjunction with such, managed to garner the signatures. And well, you know what? Although they did so, that's not a true reflection of the people. Now, the difficulty is that is this really a populace? Is it really a cross section? But then I would very well have to fall in and say, well, the Constitution said 20,000 people, so that however that 20,000 people feature wherever they feature from, and once those minimum signatures have been validated, then that's it, and on to the rest. What I want to say as a Belizean, and if we are statesmen, is that the very Constitution we speak about mandates to us. We have a Belizean imprimatur, that thing which is signified and stronger than if it was written in bold letters, but it is written too. Our Constitution delineates, describes what is Belizean sovereignty. And the policies of state and statesmen and government and the people. Country people have rights, but countries have rights too. And it's the duty of every Belizean to protect Belize's rights as a country. When we have a petition going forward, and if it is to, if I said it is to have a ban or prohibition on offshore oil drilling and or exploration or a part of it, I'm saying a ban or prohibition as opposed to maybe say even a moratorium or a, you know, for a time being holding off, right? What it is that we're doing, are we binding ourselves as a sovereign country? And are you saying that if 20,000 people want or voters from that polling, then that is fine? Because in any event, though, we'll go forward that then the referendum would be had and then the whole of the plebiscite, and in keeping with the referendum formula. My intuition, though, is that what it is, how did this come about? And I will say that at certain juncture, I would have said, you know what? No offshore drilling, no offshore drilling, the reef, the reef, the reef. I'm an environmentalist. I believe I was the first Belizean to attain an environmental law specialization. But I know that right within that, you have to understand, and when we pray for clarity and to see as a people, we as a country don't want to get bamboozled either. So we don't want anybody to be bamboozling anybody, but we have to have right now the clarity and foresight. Is it that let me put it this way. A lot of time you have environmental measures or movements which are anathema, contrary to national security interest and to sovereignty. And I was dealing with a couple of environmental clinics with people from various places. I was saying, you know what? When you come with this, and where Belize is concerned, make we subsume everything under sovereignty. When I dealt with the petition to uplift the Belize Barrier Reef, my clinic project to World Heritage Site in danger, it was the migratory and highly migratory and the flora and fauna and so on, and the ecosystems, they don't know the so-called strict lines of demarcation or borders between countries. Now, quick response, intuition, and I thank God that I had that response from me, was that, well, let's simplify it. It's like if you're dealing with a child, you give a child a puzzle, Each puzzle has the discrete parts that can be fit in, and then you can paint the environmental picture and protection flowing over that, right? So you still maintain your sovereign boundaries, right? And that, to my mind, must always be what informs us, what instructs us as Belizean before we get into something we don't understand and that we unwittingly endanger Belizean a different way. We know we have an unfounded claim against us, and they might say, "Oh, Sharon always come to that," but I will say to you all, right? I will say and I will plead and that we can't allow Belizeans to be hoodwinked either, respectfully. So that when we are saying, well, we will be going to these measures, what it is that we're doing. I remember one time I had to say somewhere when one of my environmental law colleagues was from her clinic project, "Oh, we managed to so and so and so on, and we managed to get oil exploration or something halted in that regime to the west."
Mhm.
And I kept quiet. And what was being presented was being presented. And there was a pause for comments before anybody would clap. Although the official language was English, I asked for a translation of the part that was being said in a language other than English. And having heard that, I said, well, you know what? From what I saw presented by way of maps, the only country which could have given any direction as to that or had anything to do with that permit or prohibition is the sovereign country of Belize, because those waters lie within the sovereign territory of Belize. And I went on to say that that country that the person was from, save and except for whatever it had from its lease of the Bay of Amatike, that it had no territory maritime that way. You see, we play and they said 8,867, but we have to say with all our waters at international law, law of the sea, very complex, but again, they have formulae. Why I take time to say this is that I understand and I agree if there's a constitutional referendum formula, we must abide by it. I am saying we are not to get hoodwinked by what might be things which are contrary and anathema to the you all have been mentioning basic structure, doctrine, and so on, but isn't
Sharon,
mental imperative of the
Sharon,
Constitution
we'll get into some of that.
Maintain Belize? So that if, as I said to somebody a few years ago, if you're saying you don't want offshore drilling, don't tell me, and I will give a simple example. Poaching and all the marine pollution is not from Belize. Belizean fishermen, for the most part, obey the fishing law and regime, get paraded before the court, and are fined and are taxed and are made example of. But a lot of our environmental degradation and threats over fishing, depletion, and so on, pollution, are transboundary. So that said, I've raised the caution and the alarm. It won't be that anybody will say, I haven't warned. Beware that whatever we're doing, it will not be to affect Belize's sovereignty or to be of service to anything other than Belizean sovereignty and sovereign rights and interests continuing.
Thank you very much, Sharon.
Whilst we protect our constitution.
Thank you very much for that elucidated commentary. And we will deal with some of the other matters that you brought up, particularly in the next section as regards to the separation of powers and additional legal matters, no? But I just want to have Gregory weigh in a little bit here for a few minutes, and then ask Mr. Wade before we go back to the next point, because I want to have Gregory. As a matter of fact, I should ask Mr. Wade first to weigh in, and then when I let Gregory weigh in after Mr. Wade, then Gregory could just go ahead and play the other thing after when he's ready to. Okay, Greg, are you
Yes,
hearing me,
go
Greg?
ahead, Mr. Wade.
Please, Mr. Wade.
Thank
very
you,
much,
thank you,
sir.
guys. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I listened to your what you was talking about the petition, right? And I listened at length, and Sharon, I listened, and I was educated a little bit of the environmental laws a little bit from Ms. Spitz, right? But thank you. We had touched this subject, and we didn't gone through it in at length. But I thank you guys for opening up this subject here again, because it's very, very important, right? What we have here, we have a 20,000 petition that was handled by law. In my view, they went through it legally, doing it, where the election and boundary should have certified. But here we have Attorney General. He has issues. You have a Prime Minister and the People's United Party have issues. Now, my take on that is that it's big. This is a big thing going on, because in my personal view, I think this Oceania entity that is triggering this petition, right? It has something to do with Portico, right? It's in my view, it will tie in. So no, they don't want disturbance, right? So they are putting that in the back burner. If you listen to what these guys are saying there in discussion, but I say, the law is the law. If the law says, you bring 20,000 signature to trigger off a referendum, right? And you do that, and it's done by prescription, by the law. I don't see why that it's not honored. I can't, but I could see a lot of other things that is happening behind the scene, right? It's a total disservice to the Belizean people that put their names down, that wanted to see a referendum, right? And it seems that the government have different intention. They will trigger off that referendum in their own time and in their own convenience, right? If you listen to what these guys are talking, right? They're not ready for trigger off no referendum yet, because that will interfere with what's really going on with this port war with Portugal, right? So, to me, they are not honoring, right? They are breaking the law. Plus, for me, the Constitution once again has been violated, right? And it's not the first petition that Oceania. I don't really know who is really behind Oceania. I know it's an entity that is pushing money into Belize, an entity that has no accountability to the Belizean people as to spending or who they are accountable to, right? I am not, I like I said, I don't know who is Oceania. All I know that it's an entity here in Belize, and it's run by a Belizean lady, Miss Chanona, right? And where her interest is, I don't know. I don't know whether she has country at heart or people at heart or business at heart, or I can't say, right? But all I'm saying is that if she went through the right legal process to trigger off the referendum, it should have been honored, right? But that's where I stand with that, right? I'll pass it over to Greg.
I thank all of you for your comments. The way I see it is we must read whenever these people that are government are passing laws. Here we have the People Constitution law being passed and assented by the Governor General. But the question that must be asked is, how can the Governor General assent powers onto our Prime Minister? Because exactly what they are running away from with the churches and the marijuana bill and with Oceana, when it comes to drilling, they are floating that in the People's Constitution Act to give the Prime Minister 60 days to react on whatever is present to him. And it's a total difference. It has nothing to do with national security when it comes to a referendum for marijuana or a referendum for oil drilling. And I would like to go ahead and read it so the people can hear it. Section 5 of the People Constitution Act. Miscellaneous. Section 21. The Prime Minister shall, within 60 days of receipt of this report submitted under Section 6(1)(b), lay the report before the National Assembly. Section 22. A referendum shall be conducted where the National Assembly passes a resolution declaring that the matter stated in the report, whether the Belize Constitution should be repealed and replaced or amended, is of sufficient national importance that it should be submitted to the electors for their view through a referendum. Now, anybody with common sense who understand what I just read, where does the 20,000 signatures from Oceana, where does that come in when I'm reading the People Constitution Act, which specify about a referendum that has to do with what? The Constitution RAM. It has absolutely nothing in comparison.
Point taken.
Are you finished, Greg?
In the law.
Oh, I thought
this is where our Constitution speaks for itself. When it says any law that is inconsistent with this Constitution is null and void. And here we have this Constitution Act that was passed that is inconsistent with our Constitution. And with that said, let me go to the other clip.
I don't think it's a matter of willfully ignoring it, but we felt that since we already have the People's Constitutional Commission ongoing right now, that would be the best place to be able to address it through the PCC, since they were asking even for the amendment of the Constitution. So we felt that it would have been best to do that. But what we've done as a compromise with them, we're working on an amendment, basically, as what we did with the marijuana issue, that whenever, should the day come that we want to do any kind of exploration in the sea or the ocean, it depends on, which way they want to take, that then we will then have a referendum. I've not seen the exact wording, but pretty much that's what the Attorney General just briefly shared with me, and I think probably next cabinet next week, he will then bring the actual proposal and the wording.
Is this a rule of law issue though? Because I know your government on the side, Musa is the one who first implemented this referendum legislation, and the law does not make a provision for a review, as you all are doing, and make a look point another way. The law says within X number of days, a referendum is triggered if the signatures are certified. You all are playing with the law, it would appear.
Absolutely not. It just so happened that at this moment, we have appointed by law, voted in National Assembly, the People's Constitutional Commission. And so we felt, why go through that? Why spend millions of dollars in a referendum when the People's Constitutional Commission, the commission is going around countrywide getting recommendations from the different groups of people, different communities, and I hope that within a year's time, I think they are probably at least another 6 months, they can come up with a bunch of recommendations to myself as a Prime Minister as to the way going forward. So I think it was just the opportune time. It's just a matter of timing, and that this is happening at the same time. Obviously, if the PCC was not in effect at that moment, then the law is the law. We'll probably have to go ahead with the referendum.
Okay, thank you very much, Greg, for hearing that piece for us. I'd like to take up the last part of what he said there. The law is the law, and we would have gone with the law if the PCC wasn't in place. That's an exaggeration of a conflation, because the PCC has no authority over him or over the legislator or over the courts or over any other significant entity that has to do with determining whether or not a referendum is held, is valid, or even if it's triggered, for that matter of fact. So the good gentleman, Prime Minister, just a minute, Greg, give me a shot. The good gentleman or Prime Minister is talking through both sides of his mouth, because he thinks that some people on the right side want to hear what he have to say and believe him, and whatever he's saying on the other side, people want to believe him too. When in fact, he should be saying the same thing straight out of his own mouth. He shouldn't be saying things that don't conflate. That doesn't add up. He said that the people will bring some information to him after they don't gather the information, and he as the Prime Minister going to decide what they're going to do with it in cabinet, and then after that, then they carry it to the House, go vote pan, and then the people will have the chance to decide in a referendum. All we then focus on is a referendum to get for the constitution changed the way they want it to be changed. And they're conflating that, because that referendum, that change of constitution will require a referendum. So then they try to save the referendum for when they're ready to trigger the constitutional change. But they don't want to give the people a referendum that the law provides for them to have. They never want to give the church one, and they don't want to give us one if we may get 20,000 signatures to declare him unfit to govern our country. So for all intents and purposes, these guys talk around in circles, and they lie their head off, and a lot of people back home have no real understanding or idea what they're talking about, or whether they're right or wrong. But they know that they're wrong, but then just to go through the bamboozling process. Because he, Mr. Prime Minister, know that then people not make no laws, they're not legislators, and they can't force him to do what he don't want if he decide that someone will then bring to him not meet the way he want or expect, especially if they never understand their assignment. That's his favorite statement. Mr. Jerusalem never understand the assignment. The committee might not understand the assignment if they not bring to him enough meat on the bone so that he could change the constitution the way he wanted to aggregate the powers that they want, which is that they don't have to go to any governor general in the future to get ascension of powers. They're trying to overthrow the present system that we have, dispense with the present head of state, and create their own head of state. But they feel like nobody else is onto their gig. Nobody understands what they do according to them. Anyhow, I'll yield back to Greg. You was about to say something just now, Greg?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
As I was stating just now, the People's Constitution referendum is specific about constitution reform.
Exactly.
So how could an attorney general or the prime minister tries to tie a referendum for national security along with that? I hope somebody out there can answer that. I don't think I have to go back and read it again, because what they are specifying and stating is out of context, and far out of context. I will now yield to Mr. Wade as Ms. Pitts has gone off for a second. Go ahead, Mr. Wade.
Mr. Wade.
Thank you, guys. Like I've said before, I can't tie in what the referendum has to do with I can't see what Oceania has to do with the 20,000 signature has to do with the constitution reform, right? That makes no sense, right? So I'm trying to understand that, the Constitution Reform Committee is going out there and triggering off the referendum too, right? And consultation for the referendum.
Yes. 1 second. It may not be true that they will trigger a referendum, because they may not come up with enough things to make changes that the legislature cannot presently do on their own. So there may not be any need. Wait. It's a technical thing I'm trying to bring to your attention as well as the public, right? Whatever it is that they come up with, that they were assigned to do, if they understand their assignment, like what I was saying earlier, Mr. Man, like the Prime Minister, like say, people don't understand their assignment. If these people understand their assignment, but they can't find from the general public after they put all the information together that there's enough there to trigger a referendum, then the government is already empowered to make laws. So they'll just need to go ahead and make the laws that they want without triggering a referendum. It's a very technical issue, but it's a fact. So they are go ahead, I'm sorry.
Taken, yes, yeah. So like I was saying, right, I can't seem to how to tie that in together, right? The only person know what he wants is the Prime Minister, right?
He's not even telling his cabinet. The man lies to his cabinet so often that you can't even believe that he's telling his cabinet what he really wants to do, because they might dismiss him again.
So, my thing is that I think the whole thing stinks. I think that like I have said before, this guy is hell bent to get what he wants, his agenda, and like I say, he's doing the people and the nation a disservice. And I've said before, the same thing he would have done if we have gotten that 20,000 signature to recall him, to get rid of him, right? He would have done the same thing, right? Not honoring. So I say my thing is that these guys are gross violators of the Constitution, right? And here you are. Here we have a government now that want to educate the people on their rights, right? And you hear conflicting report, you hear conflicting answers from the chairman of the Mr. Chanona, right? He has a whole bunch of things to say, which not even tying to what the Constitution scoffers are taking out there, right? These God gifts to educating the public on the Constitution, right? It seems that the chairman has his own agenda, and the people they are carrying out that going to this meeting has their own agenda. So, people, hey man, come take it for what it is, at the end of the day, like I've said before, this prime minister is going to get this written report from Mr. Chanona within 6 months, right? And then, it's designed that way, right? And everything is going to play out before the next election, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to get what, and we will see it play out, right? And again, like I say, on the item that we are on the 20,000 signature on Oceana, I think that it ties into what Mr. Briceño is trying to complete with the Portico deal, right? Because it involves the sea, right? It involves, the law of the land, right? And it involves the drilling out there for this Portico whole scenario, right? And he don't want nothing to interfere with that, right? So there he go. He kicked that ball down the road. If the ball is gone, right? So it left him now. Same thing. You see how he delay. Oh yeah, we will come up. Portico will get what they want anyway. That's what he said. He says
and that's
a
what's
law
happening.
is going to pass anyway, right? No matter what you say, cabinet is going to sit and they're going to give Portico what they want. It's not going to be in the same wording, right? But it's the same thing and worse, because look at all the goodies that he gave that company, right? That goodies that he would never give a Belizean. He would have never tell a, you can't pay your tax. It's okay, man. You can't pay your taxes this year. It's all right, man. Only pay 2% or 1%. No, you think he's not gonna, right? So there you go. Where is his interest? Does he have the Belizean at heart? A Belizean at heart? Does he have country at heart? No, the man is a businessman, right? So look at all the street deals he gave Portico, right? And a Belizean, and never get a kind of deal, right? Never get a kind of tax break from him, right? So, I don't know if I'm talking French.
No stamp. You don't
right?
have to pay no stamp duty.
You understand what I'm saying? Who want to know what I'm talking about? Get a hold of that agreement that new agreement that they came up with. Take a look at it, and take a look at the old one.
And Gregory, do you know that the man that went ahead and bastardized the thing and plagiarized the thing when we want me to say that me do?
Yeah, I know. I know they would have. I told you they would. But you know what, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman, this is very important. Just give me 3 minutes to reread this thing, okay? Because I want you to see what I'm speaking about. Part 5 of the People's Constitution Act, Section 21. The Prime Minister shall, within 60 days of receipt of the report submitted under Section 6, 1 and B, lay the report before the National Assembly. Now, you heard me just read that. What does the Referendum Act say? So, he is putting himself above the law. Yes, above the law. 60 days and shall. Now the referendum act said they had X amount of days to certify the 20,000 signatures or to decertify it.
Right.
So just listen. And this is why it is so important when I ask the question, how could the GG, how could the
No,
GG,
apologies. I lost power just now.
No problem. No
right,
problem.
They have
yes,
to do that there, Sharon.
Yes.
Go ahead, Greg.
how could
Please.
the Governor Jane assented to this? Let me read the second part again over because I really want to hear about this. Part 22 of the People Constitution Act. A referendum shall be conducted where the National Assembly passes a resolution declaring that the matter stated in the report, whether the Belize Constitution shall be repealed and replaced or amended. So with that said, what this is saying, if they with the super majority says that, you know what, we can go ahead and amend this, you know what happened? Bam, there goes your no referendum. Period.
Which is what both of them were talking
So
about.
we need to really look at it because it is right there in black and white. It's right there. And I want to turn this to Miss Pitt so she can elaborate on that.
Wait, just a minute, Greg. I need to finish reading stuff here quickly. To tie into because like I said, I need to adjust the Prime Minister's misconduct in office, you know, and so I need to just read this up quickly. Sovereign powers of ascension, executive authority, and governance accountability empowerment is the title of this particular commentary. Part 1, page number 16 of the Constitution is supreme law, depending on what version you're reading it from. Section 2, subsection 1 says, this Constitution is the supreme law of Belize, and if any other law is inconsistent with this Constitution, that other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. Part 5, page 49, describes the executive, and it reads as follows. The executive authority, section 36, subsection 1, the executive authority of Belize is vested in Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom and Commonwealth of Great Britain, and because of her demise or death, that power is now vested in her heir, the present King Charles. Subsection 2 says, subject to the provisions of this Constitution, the executive authority of Belize may be exercised on behalf of Her Majesty or His Majesty now by the Governor General, either directly or through officers subordinate to him or her, government cabinet ministers, etc. Subsection 3 reads, I'll skip subsection 3. Section 37, subsection 1 reads, there shall be a Prime Minister of Belize who shall be appointed by the Governor General. Whenever the Governor General has occasion to appoint a Prime Minister, he or she shall appoint a member of the House of Representatives who is the leader of the political party which commands the support of the members of that House. The Governor General shall remove the Prime Minister from office if a resolution of no confidence in the government is passed by the House of Representatives and the Prime Minister does not, people that refuse to yield. Subsection 6 reads, in exercise of the powers conferred on him or her by this section, the Governor General shall act in his or her own deliberate judgment, not in the judgment necessarily of anyone else, but as it says, in his or her own deliberate judgment. Part 4, page 46, Governor General established office reads as follows. Section 30 of our Constitution says, there shall be a Governor General of Belize who shall be a citizen of Belize, appointed by Her Majesty, and shall hold office during Her Majesty pleasure, and who shall be Her Majesty's representative in Belize. Page 47 speaks to the oath to be taken by a Governor General. Section 32 of our Constitution says, a person appointed to hold the office of Governor General shall, before entering upon the duties of that office, take and subscribe the oath of allegiance and office. Section 33 reads as follows, subsection 2, the powers and authority of the Governor General shall not be abridged, altered, or in any way affected by the appointment of a deputy under this section, and subject, the Governor General shall act in his or her own deliberate judgment. Again, so constantly you're hearing people say, oh, the Governor General is just a figurehead. But according to the Constitution, as it's saying, the Governor General has the power to even dismiss the Prime Minister if needs come to push come to shove, no? I can say. Page 48, exercise of Governor General's function, Section 34 of our Constitution, subsection 1. In the exercise of his or her functions, the Governor General shall act in accordance with the advice of the Cabinet or a minister acting under the general authority of the Cabinet, except in cases where he or she is required by this Constitution or any other law to act in accordance with the advice of or after consultation with any person or authority other than the Cabinet, or in his or her own deliberate judgment. Again, in other words, the final say rests with the Governor General. Subsection 3 of that same section reads as follows, whereby this Constitution, the Governor General is required to perform any function after consultation with any person or authority. He or she, the Governor General, shall not be obliged to exercise that function in accordance with the advice of that person or authority. In other words, they can operate within his or her deliberate judgment. Subsection 4 reads, whereby this Constitution, the Governor General is required to perform any function in accordance with the advice of or after consultation with any person or authority. The question whether the Governor General has so exercised that function shall not be inquired into by any court of law. In other words, the Governor General even sits above the courts of law. Page 49, Governor General to be informed concerning matters of government. Section 35 of our Constitution says, the Prime Minister shall keep the Governor General fully informed concerning the general conduct of the government of Belize, and shall furnish to the Governor General with such information as he or she may request with respect to any particular matter relating to the government of Belize. So, all of that having been read and said,
Mr. Chairman,
just a minute. There was a reason why I read that stuff. Just give me 1 second, so I could conclude. Not 1 second, 1 minute maybe 1 minute. The purpose why I read that is because the Governor General has a key responsibility in exercising governance control inside of the country of Belize. All the power is not vested in the executive prime minister and his cabinet, but that they, in effect, work on behalf and through the Governor General's ascension of powers to them. So, for all intents and purposes, our prime minister is trying to act as if he had full authority to power play for we government, when in fact what he is doing with Portico and with Buscalia and with the Feinsteins and with the new people that want to do the 200 million project with, and what he's doing with Mr. Ashcroft, and all the other things that he is doing that subvert all governance powers, under the idea that he is in control of those powers and he can do just about what he wants, especially since they think because he has such a large majority. He is actually subordinating all governance powers to his personal whims. And that's a contravention of our constitution and is illegal, immoral, unethical, and unprofessional at that. Back to you,
Mr. Chairman.
You wanted to hear from Ms.
With all the reading and the information you have put out there, Mr. Chairman, specifically speaking, it boils down to one thing. Mr. Briseno has learned from Mr. Barrow, who adopted Section 9 into Section 69 of the Constitution,
right.
that
Subsection 9
has not been removed.
Right. Subsection
now
9.
He has come up with the same idea, and he wants to get rid of the Referendum Act and come with this bogus People Constitution Act, and wants to portray it as though
he's hiding behind it
falls under national security, you must first go to them via the People's Constitution Act, which
they have
has
no
a referendum.
Power. They have no such power.
They have no power for that. But that is what he's doing.
Because he's
giving
bamboozling
himself self-power by trying to adapt what Mr. Barrow did. When he did that and went and added number 9 under Section 69, now he's coming back to try to use it. And he thinks nobody would see it. He thinks we would let that slip by.
No way.
You know I would see it.
That's the same thing as in part 1, Section 2. Subsection 2.
Exactly.
But
so that's what he's doing.
We won't fall asleep.
No, he's taking the word
around the neck.
Right. No, he's taking the word from the Referendum Act that is still law because there's no new constitution yet, and giving himself the power to say, shall the Prime Minister shall. The same shall that the Referendum Act said they should carry out to certify the 20,000 signatures, or
it's a command.
Don't certify it.
It's a command. It's not a request.
Yeah, right. So like I said, with that said, I would love to hear it now from Ms. Spitz on that.
Yeah, she's back. Yeah.
Ms. Spitz?
Yes, what am I to speak on? Sorry. I missed out quite a bit just now.
I know you didn't get the privilege to hear the context of what we were discussing, but quickly, what we were talking about is that the Prime Minister is trying to aggregate to himself powers that he's not vested with currently, that still rest in the hands of the people, and he's trying to wrestle away those powers unto himself and the government. But by the same virtue, the Governor General has a significant part to play, and we hope that the present Governor General, even though she might have some inkling of deference to the present government for protocol purposes. She needs to stand in the breach and defend Fui country from what these hyenas are trying to do with Fui country. And she needs to step to the plate and exercise the powers vested in her. So at some point, I'll have to address her as well in regards to these matters because,
Mr.
these
Chairman,
guys.
if I may,
Go ahead. I
that
was just
is
trying
the
to.
said reason. That is the said reason in Section 22 of the People's Constitution Act. They said replace, repeal, or amend. You remember Mr. Barrow went and amended and came up with that 9?
Yes.
Okay. I'm putting it out there.
Yes, but Mr. Brackett, in essence or in effect, though, Mr. Barrow did not dispense with the whole Constitution. He modified certain things to grab power.
But
or in hope of grabbing power. He did not succeed. Okay?
Right. But I'm saying the present Prime Minister is using the same terminology. So he have learned from Mr. Barrow well. And now he is trying to use the same project. But let him speak though.
Wait. He is trying to use that same wording for a different purpose though. His agenda is to eviscerate the present Constitution, not to change it, which they have the power to currently do.
In totality.
He wants to eviscerate.
Let's hear from his speech. Let's hear from his speech.
I don't like to jump into the pool not having understood what was being conversed or discussed. What I would want to say though is that when it comes to the Constitution, right, and if we hold fast or that as our navigational compass, right, and mainstay, and what you gentlemen have, and I'm beholden, not because you more than attorneys formal have been saying that there's a basic structure doctrine, right, reminding us within the field of that. So that said, it seems to me that you go with the Constitution, and then with respect to anything that would seem to bastardize the Section 69, if it is that one Prime Minister has learned from the other one in terms of attempting or going the distance to pass an amendment, then if they're learners, both would have learned, or the second one would learn in turn, that which you gentlemen refer to as ultra-virus, the basic structure doctrine, that would not fly. So they are going through the
court has ruled already.
Yes.
The court has ruled on that matter already.
The court has ruled, and
it's not pending.
Even without the court ruling, that has always been a basic fundamental principle and understanding of the Constitution.
That is correct. That is correct.
Time immemorial. That comes out of 1,000 years of constitutional history. The UK Constitution is strongest for not being in writing, but it has all the conventions, all the case law, all the other things. And you know what? Constitutions are only as strong as the people who protect them, because you have to have well-written constitutions, as in the case, I believe, Belize's Westminster parliamentary style is the one which has protected us. And I refute anything to say that we didn't, like the people didn't have a chance. Thank God we had that constitution to look to and to follow and to forge our independence. So we were not caught off guard, so to speak. And one of the gentlemen who says he went to England and said certain things, so saying that said that the people of Belize, what we wanted is Westminster-style parliamentary constitution for the next 100 years, in keeping with that doctrine of permanence. And then I am not able to get into it fully right now, but I just wanted to mention at first blush that when it comes to referendum, you have to remember that you have the entrenched provisions of the Constitution. And with respect to any attempt to change it, you'd have had to have a parliamentary majority. Now I beg the question, but I note first, it seems to me that the government was saying, you know what, we have the majority, so we don't have to ask no anyway. We don't have to ask no, we just don't know the favor, right? So they're going through this. But in my view, did the people give them a stick to block the back, or block the country back, so to speak? The thing is, though, you have advisory and you have binding referendum, right? I can't get into it much more now because I like to be responsible when I indicate certain things. So is it that government just going through the motion and, you know, like advice, you don't have to take advice and throw it through the window. But do they want to herd the people into coming with what was already a preconceived desire on its part? And when I say government, I mean leader and the opposition, the two sides, right?
Mhm.
Because the government and your minority have collective responsibility. Don't let the people forget that, right?
Sharon?
Yes,
could you
sir.
take another 2 minutes? We only have like 4 minutes left, no? At least 5.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes left. Could you take 2 out of that 5 minutes, and then we could use the other 3 minutes to close up, okay?
Yes, so basically I would say that the whole Constitution is protective of itself. And I will throw down a question which will leave some people without sleep for half the night. Is it that the Constitution give parliamentarian or even a majority of the people the power to go to a referendum, to go to a vote and do away with the country? Hell no. God's goodness gave this country to us, and good sense judgment must prevail. And you know why I throw that one out? It's not silly mischief. I'm saying there's a Belizean imprimatur, and with respect to Constitution, you protect the Constitution. You have to protect Belize as a country and maintain our sovereignty. Basic public trust doctrine, the will of the people comes into that, and the people surrender our individual will to that collective will. But there's that imperative. The biggest, greatest policies of state, the Constitution founded under God, where people don't think they're a God in their own selves or demigods, is that you give credence to that. You protect the people from themselves. You protect the Constitution. And those who have training, understanding, knowledge, or even just the ability to listen, guess what? The Constitution never give with power for unravel it. The Constitution give with power for strengthen it, and not even under the guise of strengthening to try come with shenanigans.
Exactly what I said. Exactly.
Sharon, on what you were saying just now about the Constitution, I will piggyback on what you said by just saying to you that the Constitution itself is self-preserving. But these people that we are dealing with are a bunch of jackals. You know, they have no respect for the current Constitution, and they will have no respect for any other future Constitution that they put in place, because the Constitution to them is just a means to an end.
I want to beg a question. If we have this Constitution, which and the people of Belize should understand, but for this Westminster-style Constitution and our common law and our rule of law and all liberties and protections which go with them, that we have not been in the internecine genocide in Central America and the police state and all those things. If we have this Constitution protecting us right now, protecting Belize, God forbid if we yield up any part of this Constitution, dog will eat with supper as people, as citizens, as a country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peace, for that lucid closing.
I'll
go to Greg and take a minute and a half. Greg, take a minute and a half, and then
I will just piggyback on what you said, and I will stick with it. The government is trying to turn the citizenry of Belize into sovereign citizens to get his agenda done. Because there's no other way around it.
And but once they say yes,
once they say they want to take out certain parts, you know what will happen? I
They will
just
forget what they
read
want.
it. I just read it. Let me say it again for my closing. Whether the Belize Constitution should be repealed and replaced or amended. It's right there in the People's Constitution Act. So their intention is to rewrite it. They don't want to have the section of fundamental rights along with
Write the
judicial
politicians, write the policies of state, implement the
right.
policies of state. The Constitution only as good as those who fervently protect it. We have a beautiful Constitution.
Mr. Wade, could you take a minute,
So
a
right
minute
on
and
that,
a half
Sharon,
so and
you couldn't
close?
have said it
I
better.
want I want
I'll say this that I'll close with this, and like I've said before, this government has a super majority, and they have everything in their power, and they are hell bent on their agenda, and their agenda is to turn Belize into a republic, and they are using all the different arms of the government to achieve that agenda, right? And I'll close on that. And thank you very much for pointing that out there. What you said there, Mr. Sharon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wade. Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Greg. We had a nice
Welcome.
program tonight. We only went over 1.5 minutes.
Did
So
better
we'll
than
take the
me.
next minute. We'll take the next minute to close off, and just thank our people for. Greg, you want to read up on some of the people that commented, and make we close out with that.
We
Greg?
have 3 comments. One Facebook user, Amen. One Facebook user, good night all. And one user, greeting everyone and a blessed and peaceful night. Those are the comments for tonight.
Thank you very much to our viewers and people that will look at our show afterwards, because I noticed we have quite a bit of hits afterwards. People don't normally get a chance to listen to it, apparently live on the Facebook, but I noticed that on the Belizean Affairs page on YouTube, a lot of people go there, and at least some of the members of the Belizean Affairs group also. So we have literally hundreds of people that are tuning in on a regular basis. Thank you very much for tuning in and giving
Well,
us the time. And I hope we have said and done something that will accrue to you being a bit more knowledgeable today than you were yesterday.
Thank you.
God bless.
I would like to close with this. The Belizean people know you need to protect your constitution. And like Lord Raven says, here we go.
I am a Belizean. Belize my home, my native land. I want you people to understand. I am proud to be a Belizean. If you're bande, you're bande. If you're bande, you're bande. Hey! Aye.
Thank you very much, and thanks everybody. We're gone.